really listening and really supporting your team and your people. And frankly, even in our personal lives, right? Relationships are such a big part of our lives every single day. And some of them can have conflict, but can we really have an open mind and come from a place of curiosity?
I know that in my work with many adults, they don't even know how to figure out what their core values are. And sometimes they're mistaken with things that they sometimes enjoy doing. How would we help someone who's listening to this podcast today to understand what is that first step to figuring out 1, 2, or 3 of your core values?
I think first we need a list of core values, because I agree. I taught an undergrad course at UCSD and we asked this question to undergrads and we didn't explain what core values were. And they all were looking kind of like bewildered. And so I was like, you all know what core values are? And they didn't. So it's such a great question. So, even if you go online and you Google core values, it'll come up with a whole list. Brene Brown has a huge list of them, right? And really, it's a deep reflection exercise, right? What is important to you? Is it your family? Is it your health, right? Is it your work? Is it money? There's no right or wrong answer. It's really different for everyone. And picking those core, and then once you know that, which might take a little bit of time, and again, it's going to change. Just because I have a core value of maybe travel right now, that might not be a core value in 5 years. Right. So it's important to know it's going to constantly be evolving, but really taking that deep reflection, checking in with yourself when you look at this list of, okay, what is important to me, right? What is really, really important to me? Where am I spending my 3 biggest resources, my attention, my time, and my money? And really looking at it from that lens and understanding what is that. And that might change. Maybe today I say, it's these 3 things, but then I look at it again, look at it over, a month and say, oh no, maybe it's not that. Maybe this is more important because, and so, so I think it's really doing that inner work to understand what that is for you and how that translates into your work that you do, right? Every day we spend 40 plus hours of doing sometimes.
So now, once someone figures out their core values, how do they align them with the goals at work? Because often we feel discouraged or disappointed with our match with a company, or maybe it's now leading us to stress and negative health. But how does one go about figuring out how they align their goals and values?
I think in a work situation, it's really important to have that communication with your manager or leader. Right? So to really understand what's the company's core values, and what are my core values, and finding the link somehow, right? And then those goals go into just like our personal goals, right? So like, for instance, health is probably my first core value. So, okay, if my health is my first core value, my goal is to eat right. Right? So that's my goal, whatever that is. So then what are the tasks that go into that? Okay, I'm going to meal prep salads on one certain day. So I make sure I have food to eat when I'm busy, right? I'm going to know that I'm going to go to the grocery store and do certain things, eat certain foods, and that's going to help me. So do you see how that went from core values to goals to tasks? And that's the same thing, at work. What are your core values? Okay. If it's sustainability, right? What is the goal? Like, what's a sustainable, thing you can do at work? Okay. Maybe I don't use paper plates. I mean, it's a little example, but whatever that is. And then kind of creating that, what are the tasks then? How am I going to eliminate paper plates from my workplace? Right. Okay. Maybe I'll, talk to so-and-so or do that. So that's kind of how it goes. But again, there's the tiny steps. Like I feel like when we try to do too much, we just get overwhelmed and we're like, forget it. I can't do this.
And the tiny things that you speak about when you do them and when they're aligned with our values, that joy and satisfaction that we feel from that contribution, or so this awareness, taking that action, creating a goal to achieve those is what you're beautifully sharing, helps us really invite us to avoid burnout and find joy in the work that we do. And this is beautiful. What are some of the other tips that you have in terms of mindfulness in a workplace or being aware of yourself in the workplace? I notice a lot of folks who literally feel torn between their family. I know it's communication, this balancing that doesn't exist, but how can folks, because we do have to go to work, and this is a profession you chose because you loved it at one point, and now it's sort of become a struggle. And that doesn't mean now you have to always leave your job. There is still a way to sort of back it up and figure out a different strategy. And what can people do if they're just kind of feeling discouraged at the moment?
Yeah. I think it's really important to learn what self-compassion is and practice it. Mm-hmm. And I think the way I liked, and self-compassion is more than self-care. Many people think it's self-care. It's more than that. It's, there's two sides. Dr. Kristen Neff is a huge self-compassion researcher, and I teach her program at UCSD. And what she says is there's two sides of compassion. There's this tender side that we accept that we feel a certain way. Okay, maybe we're not so happy at work and we have these emotions of sadness or, some difficult emotions. And we need to accept that because we need to accept where we're at in the moment. When I say accept in the moment. And then there's another side called fierce compassion, where it's more about action. Okay, I'm with myself, I'm accepting it. Okay, so now what can I do? Can I change my mindset? Okay. Can I start making some boundaries? I think setting boundaries is really important. Maybe, you're working such long hours and you really want to be with your family, or you just want to tend to yourself. You want to pick up that hobby or go play tennis or whatever it is. Can we set some boundaries of I got here at 7, I need to leave at 4, and being okay if you don't get that promotion then. So again, this comes back to your values. Are you okay with that? Or are you being effective and you don't need to work so many hours to get that promotion because now you have systems in place to work on the right things? So I think it's really, really important to, again, practice that self-compassion and make boundaries with yourself and others as well. And I think as far as throughout your workday, things like, especially your team, doing this even 30-second pause before you start a meeting, I think is so crucial. So many people I've talked to have started implementing it. And, you think a lot of people think it's so weird to do that in the workplace, but it's actually not. A lot of people actually love it. When I start every one of my workplace programs with this 3-minute pause transition, and they're like, wow, that was good. It was challenging because my mind is racing, right? But you have self-awareness when we get still. And so practicing, maybe different pauses throughout the day. I have a watch. And so every hour it dings, I just take a few breaths. I'm like, okay, how am I feeling right now? What's going on with me right now? Right? Oh, I haven't even ate lunch yet. Maybe I need to get up and go eat something, right? So it's just these little things that, you don't have to go up and meditate for 45 minutes or anything. It's just really just taking that relief in throughout your day.
So Cheryl, as you were speaking, one of the things that comes to mind is Deepak Chopra talks about your body being your temple. Mm-hmm. And how often is it this mindfulness, just becoming aware of us? We're always focusing outside, other things, how we can contribute to others, how we can give. But that receiving part that you're speaking about, being mindfulness, I had interviewed Dr. Tanya Goodrich recently, and she's speaking about our pelvic floor. We are in such a rush and we run to the restroom and we don't give ourselves time. And we are contributor of illnesses to ourselves. And this mindful practice that you're speaking about is how am I feeling? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? What does my body need is a key component in really showing up at work and being effective that you're just talking about. It's like simple pause. It seems simple and it is difficult to do, yet achievable with practice, with intent, with true intent of moving forward. And I can't wait to hear from others who are listening to Now What podcast or Jagged Edge, which this conversation happens to be because it's about workplace, and seeing if this makes an impact. And what are some of the companies doing? Like, what are some of the folks that you've taught? Which practices have they implemented in their workplace? Have they started a trend at work that's useful?
A lot of them, it's different for everyone. One participant said that they now go for a walk when they want to take a break, and they leave their phones at their desk. And they just kind of, I do this sense and savor walk where we're just kind of out in nature, really savoring, nature. And it could just be 10 minutes, right? When we're walking, as opposed to thinking, right? Other people have found turning off their notifications has really helped them focus better. Also, not multitasking, right? Has really helped people, stay calm and not feel so, overwhelmed. A lot about mindful communication. Can we be present with ourselves? People, can they listen to understand instead of listening to respond, right? I think that's huge in the workplace, and, giving people their presence. A lot of people have found that is really nice in a conversation, when they're having that conversation as well. And so, those are some, a few things that people really appreciate and that they've taken away and really, created a habit.
I definitely appreciate each and every point that you just made. I teach empowering people in the workplace, and one of the things that we're talking about is listening. Are we defending? Are we blaming? Are we listening? And what does that empathetic listening look like, right? When we're listening, what is that other person trying to convey? What are the emotions? Are they asking us to fix it? And maybe even asking, right? Like that mindful, that pauses to kind of reflect without speaking, to say, what does that other person need? So it's, what do I need? What does the other person need? Can create this beautiful, harmonious workplace where the productivity can go up. Our health definitely goes up. Being able to collaborate and share tasks. All of those pluses that you just brought it to our conversation. And often we are not investing in companies on practicing this mindfulness. So hopefully, Cheryl, they will reach out to you and talk to you more about how do other companies get there eventually. Cheryl, what other insights you might have that I might have not talked about?
Well, I think when we talk about communication, we talk about this empathy and compassion, it's really important that we have really direct and transparent conversations that also are compassionate. And so that's when, sometimes we need to say things that, give critical feedback. We're doing it, the intent is so important, right? So if we can do it with the intent that I'm doing this to help you, right? I'm not doing this to knock you down. And just having that two-way conversation. And to your point, really listening and really supporting your team and your people. And frankly, even in our personal lives, right? Relationships are such a big part of our lives. I mean, every single day. And some of them can have conflict. But can we really have an open mind and come from a place of curiosity? We're living in a world where everyone thinks it's black and white, your side versus my side. And it's not that way. We can still be curious and understand. We don't have to necessarily agree, but we can still try to understand, and maybe we'll learn something in the process.
Yes, absolutely. Love our beliefs. Everyone's beliefs matter, and we can all contribute in a meaningful way, and we can all belong with whatever we bring to the table. I really like the word acceptance. Truly, acceptance in a workplace can be really fulfilling. This conversation has been enlightening, educational, and empowering for me, Cheryl. Thank you for being a host on Jagged Edge podcast. I'm truly grateful.
Oh, thank you for having me, Yogi. It was a lot of fun to be here with you.
Yes. And if you have any questions, reach out to either Cheryl, her last name is Shah, and I am Yogi Patel. Thank you for listening.
If you like the content of this video,
please don't forget to follow. And also, if you want more information, visit the website, Yogi Patel, TTE.com.